Well, let me go ahead and start with an introduction of myself. So, as I said, I'm Jim Hall. I've got a pretty long career in open source and free software. It actually goes back to 1993, the first time I used free software. I was a student, undergraduate students, and that's when I first started using GNU utilities. I'm sure a lot of us had that early experience in college. Well, that was definitely mine as well. Um, I also started to use Linux almost right away, also in 1993. And I'd been a big DOS user up until that point. If you follow me on opensource.com, where I do a lot of writing, or Cloud Savvy, where I'm now writing as well, you'll see some of my background and my history, where I obviously grew up, as a lot of us did, in the 80s on the Apple II, then DOS systems, and then from there I kind of migrated over onto Linux. But I was such a fan of both the open source model and being able to build your own tools and share them with other people, and people able to contribute back to make that software better, to fix bugs and add new features. And I was also such a fan up until 93 of DOS that I actually in 1994 started my own open source software project. The first time I really, was doing more than just contributing to open source software, but I was actually creating a project and sharing it for other people to use. And so that was the FreeDOS project. If you go to freedos.org, you can see what that was. And so that's been a long running open source software project. Since that time, though, I've been a maintainer or a contributor or an author of open source software and open source software communities to dozens of open source software projects. And I do mean dozens. It's probably somewhere in the range of probably around 60 projects, some large, some small. One of those projects is the GNOME project. So you may be familiar with GNOME. GNOME is an open source software desktop system. So just like Windows is a desktop and Mac is a desktop, well, GNOME is a desktop for Linux computers. So I've been working with them for, I'm not quite sure how long now, probably in the last 6, 7, 8 years, doing usability testing. And so helping them with making GNOME easier to use. So Outreachy is a project that provides paid internship programs to women and other underrepresented groups in open source software to help them make their first contribution to open source software. And so I've mentored several cycles in Outreachy. I think I've had probably 6, 7, or 8 interns go through that program. It's actually been very fulfilling, because I also got to watch some of those interns go on and actually make their career in open source software, and doing some of the things that we were doing in those internships. Specifically, we were doing more usability testing with GNOME. I've also been a longtime Fedora user, of course, even before that, a longtime Red Hat user, and I've done some work on some Fedora systems as well in terms of developing. Been part of the open source software community for a very, very long time, and of course now also partnering with Brandeis and Open Source Initiative to do these micro courses on open source software. Outside of that open source software work, at work, I'm the CEO of Hallmentum. It's a training company that provides training and workshops to help new IT leaders and emerging IT leaders to step up into that leadership role. Also, current IT leaders to get better at IT leadership. I also have other workshops around IT management and things like that. So, what you're getting out of these micro courses is somebody who's not just experienced in open source software, but also has experience doing instruction as well, because that's certainly what I've been doing for the last couple of years in Hallmentum. Before I was at Hallmentum, by the way, I was the CIO for Ramsey County for a little over 3 years. Ramsey County, Minnesota is the smallest geographically, but the second largest by population. It also includes the state capital of St. Paul. Because of the small geographic size but the large population, we face very difficult and challenging problems like population density and things like that. So, the IT leadership over that time. Before that, I was the campus CIO for the University of Minnesota, part of their system. I was over at the Morris campus. And I was there for about 5.5 years. So total together, CIO role for about 9 years. And before that, various IT leadership roles going back some 20, 25 years. And so long time experience in IT. Also, in terms of professional experience, also have taught and currently teach university level. So I teach at a couple different universities, including now Brandeis, uh, teaching different topics, including technical and professional writing, uh, management information systems, computer science, things like that. So you're getting experience here from somebody with bringing the perspective of open source software, but also an instructional background as well.